Joining us now from the Action Network, longtime college football insider and expert, Brett McMurphy returns to BYU Sports Nation. Brett, great to have you back on the program. How are you?
Good to be with you guys again. Hope you're doing well.
We're doing well because
we're
for
doing
the first
great.
time ever,
we're not going to ask you about expansion
we
this
will
time.
not talk about Big 12 expansion because it's happened, Brett. Yeah, BYU's headed to the Big 12 in 2023. We would love to hear how you feel BYU will fit in that new Big 12.
I think it's going to be great. I mean, I was wondering why you guys don't call me anymore. Now I know why. now that you're big time power conference, you don't have time for me. No, it's great. And this year is a perfect example what the Big 12 will mean to BYU and how BYU will benefit. As you guys know, I do my bowl projections. I had BYU in the Fiesta Bowl while you were undefeated, but now with one loss, I don't see you getting a New Year's Six game, and so that means you'll end up in the Independence Bowl, whether you're 11-1 or 6-6. However, if you're in the Big 12 conference and you roll out an 11-1 season, you're still in the running not only for a New Year's Six game, but for the conference championship. And if you win the conference championship, obviously in the Big 12, you're going to go at worst to the Sugar Bowl. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference for BYU being in the Big 12, and it's going to pay huge dividends. I haven't talked with anybody on campus there since the move happened, but I'm sure recruiting wise, it's got to be just a huge difference and such an added benefit for Kalani and everybody there. So that's the great news. The bad news is you still got a couple of years to go, but certainly things I'm hearing with UCF and Houston and Cincinnati and their recruiting efforts. It's obviously a huge benefit for the Cougars.
Brett, we go on 2-year missions. We know how to wait. This is is just one of those. We'll be just fine. Regarding recruiting, 2 4-stars have committed to BYU in-state since the news. So yes, it has certainly affected BYU. BYU gets kind of 1 4-star class, maybe every other class. So that's big news. Regarding BYU in the New Year's Six, let's say BYU runs the table in the back half of the schedule and wins 6 in a row, including Baylor, Washington State, Virginia, USC. Now, they certainly may not be in the New Year's Six, but do you think they'll be a strong candidate at 11-1 despite the 1 loss with 7 Power 5 wins in that scenario?
Well, here's the deal. And this is, again, I preface this with, this is not what I think. This is what I think the selection committee will do. The selection committee will look at it, and to be in a New Year's Six game, you're going to have to probably finish in the top 12 in the country. It's not definitive. It depends on a number of things, but you got to be in that top 12 range. So the selection committee, why I don't think that the selection committee would put you in the top 12 with all of those Power 5 wins, you would only have 1 win against the top 25 team, and that's Arizona State. And that's if Arizona State remains in the top 25. If they fall out of the top 25, it doesn't matter what the ranking was when the game was played. It matters what the ranking is at the end of the season. So then you would have no top 25 wins. So even with that said, yeah, you'd still have 7 Power 5 victories. However, the schools that you would be competing against as far as the rankings, look, the committee is not going to put 11-1 BYU ahead of 2-loss Alabama. They're not going to put them ahead of 1-loss Iowa, 2-loss Ohio State, 2-loss Penn State, because those schools, which BYU will find out in a couple of years when they're in the Big 12, those schools will have multiple top 25 victories, and their losses, with a few exceptions, will be against teams that are in the top 25. Obviously, Alabama's lost to Texas A&M. Texas A&M may fall out of the top 25. So I just think it's going to be difficult for BYU to climb. They're currently number 19 in the AP poll. It doesn't mean the selection committee would put them at 19 now. They may put them higher. They may put them lower. I just think it's going to be tough for them to – there's a lot of bodies they got to climb over. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of upsets. But I think it's just going to be hard for them to get up into that top 12 range for the selection committee to put them in a New Year's Six game. I may be wrong. I just think the other schools that they'll be competing against will have more top 25 wins, and that's what the selection committee gives the most weight to.
Follow him at Brett_McMurphy on Twitter, Action Network, College Football Insider, and a longtime college football expert.
America's college football insider.
Yes.
Right,
okay.
Brett? Right?
We're still trying to clarify if it's North America or South America, but
all of
yes,
it.
That's true.
Fair enough. Okay, Brett, so just to clarify, for the BYU fan, for the Cougars to have any shot at being in that conversation, you're telling me that Arizona State needs to keep winning, remain ranked, and if
Baylor
BYU
would have to keep going.
Yes, if BYU beats Baylor, then Baylor's going to have to do well in the Big 12, right? We're looking for quality wins on that resume.
Yes, that's the trick. Any opponent you play, you want to beat them, like Utah, and then you want them to win the rest of their games. So, certainly that would help increase your chances. I mean, look, USC, I did a note the other day, USC, they may not even be bowl eligible this year. They may not get the 6 wins. Same with LSU and Miami. I know you don't play those guys. But, yeah, you need Arizona State to run the table. I mean, look, if Arizona State wins the Pac-12, which is still possible, that certainly would help BYU's resume. Again, the challenge for BYU is you would only have that one top 25 win,
right,
unless somebody in your schedule somehow gets up into that top 25, which I don't project right now.
Well, Spencer yesterday mentioned, listen, if BYU's not in the New Year's Six, if that's not possible, which, yes, BYU's going to be an outsider in that conversation. What you said makes sense. It really does, against the 2-loss Titans of the sport. Then somehow, I know the Independence Bowl is Conference USA, and then there's actually this thing where maybe BYU could be in the Cheez-It Bowl, now called the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Big 10, Big 12, if they can't fill a spot, blah, blah, blah. Somehow, let's get Coastal and BYU.
Yes, please, Brett. Make Coastal Carolina BYU happen.
Get Coastal and BYU, because even if Cincy loses a game, it feels like due to the strength of schedule for the Bearcats that Cincy probably still could be the Group of 5 team, right, should they win their league. So let's get a Coastal BYU game. Are you in favor of this?
I'm in favor of this. The good news is, look, this year, in the next 5 years, the final 5 years of the college football playoff, as far as the non-Power 5 bowl games, which obviously BYU has their affiliation with the Independents this year and other bowls moving forward till they go to the Big 12. It's basically, you can't just say, for instance, the Independence Bowl is 100% BYU versus Conference USA. There's this about a dozen bowls where they will pick from all the Group 5 conferences. So there's going to be a lot of horse trading. So even though some conferences and or schools supposedly have tie-ins with specific bowl games affiliated with Group of 5 schools, it could totally be mixed around, and you could have these made for TV matchups or whatever to make more attractive matchups, and just disregard any conference affiliations that we've seen in the past. That's what's made doing these bowl projections each week literally impossible to do, because once you get through the Power 5 is very specific. This conference versus this conference in this bowl. Once you get past those Power 5 only bowls and you get into the rest of the bowls, I mean, I'm being totally serious. Like the American, for example, they have 7 bowl bids tied to their conference. 3 of them are specific that they will play in specific bowl games. The other 4 bowl games are to be determined among 12 bowls. And the same goes with Conference USA, with the Sun Belt, the MAC, et cetera. So you've got this mixture of 12 to 14 bowl games that can pick from any Group 5 conference. So that means, I think, that maybe BYU, if they could trade with the Independents to get somebody else in somewhere else, then maybe they could move BYU somewhere else. Look, the more BYU wins, and look, if they go 11-1, I think that increases the chances that they could maybe be put in a different bowl. But certainly if they lose, if they're down to 9-3, 8-4, something like that, then I think that the chances greatly increase that they would remain in the Independents.
Brett McMurphy is on BYU Sports Nation. Brett, I know you're an Oklahoma State grad, and I'm always fascinated to talk to national analysts when their school and what they're part of an alumni base in are doing well. How do you balance being an Oklahoma State fan and still trying to call or see college football with an unbiased perspective?
I'm probably harder on Oklahoma State than I am other schools. I guess it's kind of like if you're coaching your kid, you don't want to show favoritism to them. In the AP poll, all of our votes are public. I put mine out on Twitter and then close my laptop for the next 24 hours. But I've had Oklahoma State ranked lower probably than the majority of AP voters. And part of that, it's not to be like, oh, I'm showing I'm unbiased, but to be very, very honest, Oklahoma State's 5-0 right now. They could also very easily be 2-3 right now. I mean, Boise State, they won because of an inadvertent whistle. Kansas State, they had a defensive touchdown. Baylor, they scored late. They squeaked by Missouri State in the opener. Tulsa was they've basically been involved in 5 one-score games, and those things, are coin flips. So that's why I've had Oklahoma State a little bit further down. Look, in 2 weeks, they went. Somebody at Oklahoma State ranked, I think, 5th or 6th in the AP poll. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm an alum of Oklahoma State. I can't even fathom that. Look, they've got at Texas, at Iowa State the next 2 weeks. If they win those 2 games, I think they should be in the top 10. How far up? There's so many factors involved in that. But, I just if I think they're good, then I'll say they're good. If I think they're bad, I'll say they're bad. And I think when you do that, over a long period of time, I think people respect your opinion more instead of always just beating the drum saying, oh, everything's great. Everything's great. And I don't know if you guys are a fan of Young Frankenstein. I love that movie, but he's like, it could get worse. And he's digging a grave and he's how's that? And he goes, well, it could start raining. So I'm not going to tell you it's sunshine when it's pouring outside. I just try to be, as objective as I can. And look, I know everybody agrees with my rankings 100%, so I have nothing to worry about.
Brett McMurphy's on BYU Sports Station. We'll finish with this, Brett. We've been talking about the biggest surprises specific to the BYU football season through 6 games, the midway point. Let's get your overall take. What's the biggest surprise of the entire college football season at the midway point?
Well, I guess if you had asked me last week, I would have said how dominant Georgia and Alabama have been this year. And now you're asking me this week, so I'll say how dominant Georgia has been. I thought Georgia was a college football playoff team before the season. I didn't think they would be this dominant. And especially in BYU, fans can know this feeling. They've had some issues at quarterback. They've had injuries. They've played multiple quarterbacks. It hasn't mattered. Their defense has been that good. Now, you could argue that, they haven't played the greatest offensive juggernauts to this point, but they just have dominated people and surprised a lot of people. I mean, Georgia right now would be favored in a game against Alabama if they meet in the SEC title game. So probably Georgia, and probably real quickly, the other thing is probably the overall depth and quality at the top of the Big Ten. I did not expect Michigan State to be in this position. I did not expect Michigan to be in this position. Obviously, Ohio State, surprised by the loss to Oregon. I mean, Iowa, they may have 2 yards of offense, but they're going to create 7 turnovers and they're going to win, 16-0 on 8 safeties. So they've been incredible. And Penn State has been, obviously they lost their quarterback, Sean Clifford. That could hurt them long term. But the overall depth of the Big Ten, has really, really surprised me. And also, real quickly about BYU, I mean, look, with the opening 3 games BYU had, I didn't expect BYU to be undefeated. Certainly the loss to Boise was, BYU fans didn't like that. But I think if you take a step back, and if you would have said before the season, at the halfway point of the year, we're going to be 5-1, I think, obviously outside of the building, they want to be 6-0. I think most rational BYU fans would have said, I'll take it. Now, you wouldn't have expected that loss to be to Boise. You probably would have thought it would have been against one of the Power Fives, except for Arizona. Especially with the injuries BYU's had at quarterback, I would put BYU as one of the surprise teams up there. unfortunately, they're going to get overshadowed because Cincinnati's undefeated and beat Indiana and Notre Dame. And I said this, I hope you guys saw it a week or two ago when everybody was clamoring that Cincinnati has to be in the playoff. Cincinnati has to be in the playoff. I'm like, wait, what about BYU? BYU goes undefeated. That's 7 Power 5 wins. Cincinnati has 2. And I like to say, if you just fell out of the sky onto earth before this season and didn't know the past about the Group 5, and you just looked at Cincinnati and what they've accomplished this year, I don't think they're a playoff-worthy team based on that schedule. Everyone wants to say, well, the Group 5's been screwed for 7 years, so we need to make up for it. Whatever, that's a different argument. I'm just saying, based on this season alone, I don't think Cincinnati undefeated will get in over a one-loss Power 5 team. But what irked me is that everyone just kind of dismissed BYU. Why not BYU? They obviously, the Boise loss killed them, but 5 more Power 5 wins against than Cincinnati, and they would have had as many top 25 wins as Cincinnati. And at the end of the year, I think Arizona State's probably going to be ranked higher than Notre Dame.
Yeah, hard to argue that. They look really good. Brett, we appreciate the insight, the time. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Great to be a member of the Big 12 with the Oklahoma State Cowboys in 2023. And we look forward to your next perfect set of rankings released this Sunday.
Tell Mr. Tom Homo I'm still waiting for my parade invite for that Big 12 parade. So
you got it.
How to track me down.
We'll pass that along. Thanks so much, Brett.
Thanks, guys.
Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. Follow him at Brett_McMurphy for more fantastic college football content.